My name's Nancy Nicholson and I run Nancy Nicholson Studios. I'm a rug weaver and heritage textile artist, and I live and work in South Devon. Nancy Nicholson Studios is a design studio that aims to create textiles for homes, whether it's on the floor or the wall, that not only are embedded in a deep heritage of rug making and the materials that they are created out of, so in my case wool, but also that brings modern and dynamic geometric designs into a space that respond directly to the place that they are in, whether that be the angle of the light as it comes into the room, or the placement of various different bits of furniture, whether you want a circle to hug you as you sit in a chair reading, or something that is going to draw you down a hallway. The aim is to balance that sense of age and history and tradition that is there within the techniques with modern and quite immediate reaction to space itself. When I first started Nancy Nicholson Studios, my studio was always in our house. When my husband moved and took over the Church House Inn in Harberton, not far from where we live now in Totnes, there was the opportunity for me to move my studio above the pub. And so now we have a wonderful situation where we're both working in the same space, and it's really allowed us to realise the crossovers and the similarities between the two industries that we work in and the way in which we both choose to work within those separate industries. My journey into weaving, I think, a bit like the process itself, was a very slow one. I was working in theatre at the time, and we had to build a loom for a play that made it look like it was going to be able to work on stage. That opened my eyes to how complex a piece of machinery the loom was, and I found that really fascinating. And I just became more and more interested in the process. And I started taking a few weekend courses, just teaching myself and learning from other weavers. And that gradually built and built and built. And eventually I took some lessons from a master weaver who really, opened my eyes to how much you could do. And I just got myself a huge loom. It just felt so natural once I'd done that. It felt like such a natural thing for me to be spending my time doing. At the beginning, when I started doing it full time, there was a lot of trepidation. I think I questioned myself quite a lot to start with. The loom was an expensive piece of kit for me at the time. When it arrived with a sheet of instructions that was 3/4 full and in finish, I spent a week working out how this piece of machinery went together. And I think that process, although it was incredibly frustrating and I had to take the loom apart and put it back together hundreds of times, it created a sort of bond between me and the loom. And I think that has meant that the way that I work with it feels more like a partnership than me using a tool. Inspiration for me and my work comes from two quite specific areas. The first one is from the materials itself, and I think that I grew up on a hill farm in Cumbria. My mum is still a sheep farmer to this day, and I'm lucky enough to be able to use quite a lot of her wool in my work. As a fibre, it is so much more than it is often given credit for. I think it's quite underrated, even now when it is having a bit of a resurgence. Fibres change so much from breed to breed. If you've got your wool from a regenerative farm, or even just a partly regenerative farm, the difference in quality that you get from that is so huge that once you've seen that difference, I certainly have become quite obsessed by the little nuances that you get within that fibre. I'm quite unapologetic about the fact that I think my aesthetic is quite firmly rooted about 70 years ago in lots of ways. I am a bit of a child of modernism, and I'm fascinated by reducing the world around us to geometric relationships. It's something I've always done. I think it calms me. It gives an underlying foundation to the world around me. And so that naturally comes into my designs. I think geometry, simplifying things to their most fundamental level, is an intrinsic part of how I work creatively. I think it's one of the reasons why I love weaving as a craft. I think slower living has a really important role to play in how we live now, because there is so much temptation to go faster. And I do not think that I should be sitting in front of the fire spinning wool that I have hand plucked off sheep myself. But I think because there is so much opportunity for things to go incredibly quickly, if you give in too much to the speed, then you miss so much. And I think as a craftsperson, it really gives you an opportunity to take things slower.